Welcome to Empowered. I'm Elizabeth Naumovski. Tonight, we're tackling a stage of life that touches every woman, yet too often remains misunderstood: menopause. Beyond the hot flashes and mood shifts lies a deeper story about health, vitality, and empowerment. Can lifestyle choices really shape a woman's risks for heart disease, osteoporosis, or dementia? And how does mindset influence the way we move through these changes? And what's the one shift that could make a difference this very week? To share science based insight and compassionate guidance on how women can thrive through menopause, not just survive it, I'm joined by our resident nutritionist and women's health coach, Annie Gaudreault, founder of VEEV Health and Wellness. Annie, welcome back to Empowered. Great to see you again.
Lovely to see you, Liz.
Okay, so let's just jump right in. And I know, like, this is your passion, this is your calling for women. Why do you call menopause a time of empowerment rather than a decline? And how can women reframe this stage of life?
Oh, this is such an important topic, Liz, because here we are with decades of experience, right? A little bruising, some scars, but so much wisdom. It absolutely is an incredible time where we're coming into our own. It's less about, right, what are the Jones are doing and what society really expects of us, but really starting to do things on our own terms. It's an incredibly liberating time for women.
I love the fact that you said it's incredibly liberating. I want to now focus on something that most women struggle with. What are the most common mistakes women make when trying to lose weight at midlife? And how can they shift their approach? Because this seems to be a focus of many women.
Yes, it's a big complaint. One of the big symptoms of menopause is the weight gain. So I hear this in my practice all the time. Now, one of the biggest mistakes is this obsession with fasting, these very aggressive fasts that have been sold to women as this panacea for weight loss. And the reality is, it's not that effective and actually can cause it can actually really backfire on us. Now, the other thing, Liz, is this another obsession, the cardio craze. The more I'm going to burn, I believe I'm going to be losing weight. So, this nonstop cardio is actually really not beneficial for us anymore.
So, what should we do then?
So, we need to actually nourish ourselves, our bodies for where we're at this point. Right? We are battling a lot of what a domino effect of that estrogen having dropped on insulin, for example, which is really going to cause us to be less effective at creating energy and using glucose. So there's more storage of that glucose, unfortunately. The second thing is we need to change how we move. Less cardio, more high intensity, shorter time, and strength training.
So, this is very good. This is great intel for women to know. So, with so much conflicting or overwhelming information out there, how can women know what's truly evidence based when it comes to their menopausal health?
Yes, we definitely have seen a bit of a tsunami of influencers and people on social media. One thing I like to say is check the source. Who is this person? What are their credentials? Right. So that's the first part. The other thing is that there are really incredible sources of information, such as the Canadian Menopause Society, which has unbiased, evidence based information for women to access. Even things, tools, Liz, like a checklist for you to come and better be prepared to speak with your doctor at your next appointment. Really great information that you know is solid.
And I think that's really important. A checklist is really good because when you go and have an appointment, whether it's with you or your doctor, it's easy to forget really, really important pieces. So write it all down and take that list with you. We have less than a minute to commercial break. So I'm going to start with this next question and then we'll continue on. How does stress specifically affect women in midlife? Because we all are stressed, overstressed. And what are some
Yeah.
realistic ways to manage it when life feels overwhelming?
I think that we diminish the effect and the impact of stress on us. So, first part of the answer right now, Liz, is really trying to minimize the stress sources in our lives. When we come back, we can talk a little bit deeper about what specifically how can we can do that.
Perfect. We'll be right back for more. Welcome back to Empowered. I'm Elizabeth Naumovski. Today's discussion is why menopause is a time of empowerment. So, Annie, before we went to commercial break, we were talking about stress and how stress affects women in midlife. Please continue with how we can manage it when we're feeling totally overwhelmed.
Yeah, a little bit of how I guide women with this is really looking at your life and removing some of the things that are triggering. You know, the news cycle can be really heavy these days, as we all know, right? So putting ourselves a little bit on a news detox, right? And we all know news are important, but how much of that are we really, taking in? I have some clients who, mandated is removing apps from their phones, right? Things that are going to be triggering them. There are many things that we are in control of. And I think that that's an important reminder, right? When we're starting to feel overwhelmed, that actually we have a lot more agency than we believe. So removing these sources of stress that truly are almost what I would call artificial. We don't really need them, right? And then replacing them with things that will be grounding. For example, do you need just a very simple breath practice when you're starting to feel overwhelmed? Whether you're taking the subway and you close your eyes for a minute or two, you can also do that with your eyes open if you don't feel comfortable, right? Very simple practices that will decrease your stress, because at this point, this stress is causing so much damage on your body and will have really big health implications in the long run, Liz.
I love the fact that you were talking about breathing exercises because I do that often, especially when I'm feeling anxious or stressed about something. I will take a minute and ground myself, breathe in and out. And I find that it actually just calms me and helps me focus as well. And I think breathing is very important. And if you have never tried it before, give it a try. Make sure you do it properly. But it's important. You're 100% correct. I want to talk about many women who say that they feel invisible, especially at this stage, the menopausal stage. What role does taking control of one's health play in reigning confidence? Because we all need that confidence.
I think it's everything, Liz. Right? I always say once we educate ourselves around our health, like often we arrive at this stage of life not knowing really what's happening to my body. We never had a little bit of a booklet, the guideline to, hey, here's what's going to happen at menopause, right? We just get thrown into it. It's like a tsunami that just hits, and then you're like waking up and you're like, what's just happened to me? So getting some good knowledge over what is happening to your body is the first starting point, so that then you understand what are my options, what are the tools that I can have. That's going to empower you because it's going to throw you into action, and there's no more a better recipe for confidence than action.
And I love the fact that you and I started talking about menopause. The first show, first Empowered show aired May 2023. And you were one of my first guests. And this is exactly what we were talking about. And I think back then, most people were not talking about the empowerment of menopause and how women could flourish and how, the whole educational part of it.
Yes, I think that it was shrouded, first of all, in mystery. So, it's kind of the blind leading the blind. The other thing is that it was more seen as this thing that we had to be embarrassed about, whereas it is a total natural phenomenon, just like, hormonal changes when we are teenagers, and, fertility and pregnancy. These are just normal phenomenons of life. This is not a disease. So why not treat it as such?
I love the fact that you said that. I also want to talk about the importance of strength training, especially during menopause, and what you say to a woman who's never lifted weights before.
Yeah, I say, yay, you can start today. This is really non negotiable, Liz, at this stage of life. First, we've got the normal loss of muscle, which happens with age. It's not a menopause related phenomenon. But we also have now the double whammy of loss of bone quality as we lose estrogen. So we really look at quality of muscle as almost like the organ of longevity, if you want. We can tell by the quality of someone's muscle, the quality of life that this person is going to have. It is such a determinant of quality of life. It is
Hold
really
that thought,
essential.
Annie. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Empowered. I'm Elizabeth Naumovski. Today's discussion is why menopause is a time of empowerment. Annie, my apologies for cutting you off. We did have to go to commercial break. I want to go back to strength training because this is very important. And you talked about this earlier in the show. You talked about women, doing so much cardio, all the cardio strength training, but the cardio is not as important as strength training and as lifting weights. So please continue.
Yes, and you were asking where can women start because a lot of women have never done strength training, right? We
Mhm.
were all afraid of bulking up. So first of all, you would have to spend your whole week in the gym in order to bulk up. So women should not be afraid of like just getting big. That's the first thing I want to say. And you begin, I always recommend paying for one or two sessions with a professional trainer, especially someone who understands women's bodies at midlife because you want to have the right technique so that you do not get injured, right? And then you get them to photograph you and take video footage. That way you have something to go back to and understand what was my posture, what was my head position in this, so that you're really well equipped to start your strength training. Start with two sessions of 15 minutes per week.
I love the fact that you said that because I have a trainer and we lift weights together. And a lot of times we hold all our stress in our shoulders. So we always scrunch up our shoulders. So they're just under our ears. And a lot of times she'll put her hands on my shoulders and bring them down because I don't even know that I'm doing it. So you're right. You need to get somebody who will help guide you properly so that you don't injure yourself while you're working out as well.
Exactly. And you do want to progress very slowly so that your body is adapting. But what is the most amazing thing, Liz, is that we see changes in women's bodies regardless of when we begin this process. So it could be in 60s, 70s, even 80s, we see progress.
I love it. Annie, what's one nutrition myth about menopause you wish we could retire once and for all and just never go back to it?
I think the biggest myth is that women have to go without food and fast forever in order to lose weight. That's I wish that could go away right now.
Yeah, yeah, me too. Because there's so much misinformation out there, and we need to focus on proper healing and proper information for women, which is another thing. How does sleep and recovery factor into managing hot flashes, mood swings, or even energy crashes?
I think that sleep is crucial for overall resilience and overall immunity. Now, it's not directly linked to hot flashes necessarily, but we definitely see a big difference in terms of mood and overall mental health. So, sleep is fundamental for helping us even with our blood sugar regulation. So it impacts all systems in the body, Liz, physically, mentally, and emotionally.
It's a lot. It's a lot to undertake, especially when you can't sleep because your brain is constantly twirling around. So sleep is important, key. It's a key to surviving. I also want to talk about lifestyle. Can lifestyle really influence risks like heart disease, osteoporosis, or dementia? And what changes matter the most?
Oh, it's such an important question, Liz. The most amazing thing is that the data now shows us that 50, that's 50% of all cases of dementia are preventable through lifestyle modifications.
Wow.
So, this is extremely encouraging for women because 2 out of 3 cases of diagnosed dementia are women. So we know that we've got some work to do, but there's so much optimism there. It definitely can help with osteoporosis. A lot of osteoporosis is preventable through lifestyle changes. The sooner we begin, of course, the better. We often say, actually, about dementia, Liz, that dementia is not an old age condition. It's actually, it begins its foundation at midlife and expresses itself, 20 years later.
So, what can people do to help not get dementia and not have that foundation in your body?
With dementia, the key things, proper nutrition. So we now even have something called the mind diet, very, you know, akin to the Mediterranean diet, and very
Okay,
anti-inflammatory.
hold on to that, Annie, because I want to talk about the mind diet when we come back. So please don't go away. Welcome back to Empowered. I'm Elizabeth Naumovski. I'm joined by our resident nutritionist and women's health coach, Annie Gaudreault, founder of VEEV Health and Wellness. Today, we're discussing menopause, and I want to talk to you about dementia as well, because we were discussing that before we went to break, and you talked about a mind diet. Can you please explain it?
Yes. So this is a beautiful diet that is very much akin to the Mediterranean diet. So lots of leafy greens, nuts and seeds, fish, healthy fats, less of the saturated types of fats, more beans in terms of protein, legumes type of things. This is a diet that we know helps prevent the the degeneration of the brain. So, something that is really important for us women as we are unfortunately favored for dementia.
Oh, okay. So let's move on to now mindset. What role does mindset play in navigating peri and menopause? And how can women stay hopeful with symptoms that they feel throughout?
I think that having a mindset of curiosity, Liz, is really important, right? Because no 2 women have the same menopause experience. So while you are looking for options for your symptoms, staying open minded for the fact that your solution might be very different than what worked for your sister or your colleague or your neighbor, right? So that mindset is really important. Making sure also that you have a positive mindset about menopause. We know from research that negative beliefs impact the outcome from a health standpoint. Right? We see that it's been researched around aging as well. So it's not woo woo, it's actually really solid science. So I think that that's really important as we are either approaching menopause or within menopause itself.
So, Annie, if a woman could only make one change this week to improve her health, what would you recommend?
To move more. Absolutely. The science is clear that this is the biggest ROI to think about, financial terms. It is the biggest return on investment of your time for your health.
So, what should women know about hormone therapy? Because a lot of women are talking about it right now. Women in their 50s, women in their 60s, women in their 40s, thinking, I need something to help me get through this. How do you decide if hormone therapy is right for you?
Yes. The good news is that now what women need to know is that it is an option to consider. It is a decision that needs to be made with your doctor, hopefully someone who has been trained in menopause treatment, because sadly it is not part of the education curriculum for doctors. So you need to make sure that your doctor has some supplemental training to guide you. What's really important to know is that it is not the panacea, nor is it evil. It is going to help some women tremendously. Some women don't do well with hormone therapy. So I think that it's really important to have the conversation to weigh the benefits versus the risks, to look at what are the options, and perhaps try if this is right for you. And it might not be right for you. But what's really important for women to know is that it should be an option to consider because there are a lot of benefits.
So, what about supplements? How do you help women cut through the noise of supplements, miracle cures, and quick fixes?
Well, I think these days, Liz, half of my day is to battle the misinformation around, these miracle products that are all over social media, and combine that with the fact that it's Hollywood celebrities endorsing these products.
Yes.
My head wants to explode because when we look what is in those products, often the evidence is very slim of the active ingredients and what they're actually going to do for you. I'm not saying that somebody should not be trying something if they feel like it. I get really concerned because there's a lot of unregulated supplements.
Yeah.
So we're not even sure that what they say is on the label is actually in the product. So that's one of the first area of concern. And also that we are preying on women's vulnerabilities. And a lot of women are spending hundreds of dollars for basically what is the equivalent of snake oil.
Yeah.
So we really need to have our, is if this sounds too good to be true, it is. We can
What?
manipulate data online all the time.
Thank you so much, Annie.
Thank you.
Annie's words of wisdom to you are: let's stop waiting for a magic pill. The real power is in knowledge, community, and taking charge of our own health. Menopause is not a breakdown, it's a breakthrough. It is your chance to reinvent, rebuild, and rise stronger than ever. Thank you for watching. I'm Elizabeth Naumovski. Bye for now.